Good morning. We'll call the meeting to order for the day. First item on the agenda is approval of today's agenda, and we do have an addition.
Move to approve the agenda with the addition.
Second.
Motion and second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Citizens to be heard. Seeing none. Approved payment of bills and vouchers.
Move to approve, Mr. Chair.
Second.
Motion and second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, Kathy's not here, so how about we do our committee reports and get right then after this. So, Wayne, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On Tuesday, November 17th, the Local Advisory Council for Adult Mental Health, General Business, a presentation from Dr. Adam Gilmano of the Fargo Veterans Administration, and he is their local recovery coordinator. Agency reports from Clay County Social Services, Ward Police Department, Lakeland Mental Health, Transitional Employment Services, Mobile Crisis Unit, Community Behavior Health Hospital, Place for Hope, the Jail Behavioral Health Committee, update and then solutions, and also from Summit Counseling Services. And we went over consumer concerns and other discussions about mental health concerns in the community, and that was for that meeting. Thursday, November 19th, Lake Agassiz Regional Library, full board meeting. General business, financial report, and at this time all is well, our director's report. And then we elected the executive board for 2016, board member reports, and the president's reports. And those are my
Thank you. Good morning. Frank, go ahead.
Tuesday, I went to the Clay County Planning Commission meeting. There they had a request from a person who wants to put in start hosting weddings, that they wanted to put in convert a barn into a wedding reception thing, and had quite a few, most of the neighbors there were against it, so I think he was not granted the request, and also there was a lot of people there from the Hightail Horse Ranch expressing their concerns over stuff not being, horse ranch not being run properly. Thursday, I went to the Wild West Watershed Board meeting in Ada. There they had some concerns about people. There was a person put in a request to put in a private culvert. He wanted the county, Clay County, to pay part, 1/3, him pay 1/3, and Watershed Board to pay 1/3. And our part would have been $17,000. They denied his request, but I didn't know whether we had approved that before or not, you know, but he put in, it would have cost us $17,000 that they approved it. So I didn't know where we get involved in that or not. And I was going to check that with Dave. He wasn't back till, I don't think he was there last week. Also, they talked about they're concerned about buffer strips. They needed to come up with a policy, you know, if there's a buffer strip in a ditch, you know, beside the ditch, who owns the land then? If you need a 50-foot buffer strip beside your land, who's the owner of that land then? Then I went to the Metropolitan Council of Governments. There we increased to West Fargo. West Fargo wanted 2 members on the board, which we approved, and then we went on to North Dakota Department of Transportation is taking away around $600,000 in funding for different projects that have been in the go. So it's just without any notice, it just took away $600,000, which is really going to affect MetroCog's operation over there. So they wrote a letter to quite a few people. I think you've got a copy of that letter showing our displeasure with that. Also on Thursday, I went to the family health care meeting there. They got a good report from last year to this year. Last year they were minus $17,000 in operation funds. This year they got to $719,000 to the good, so they had a very good annual report. Also they gave the Mayor Tim Mahoney award for all his, or plaque for all his years of service. Again, they have a monthly update. There's a nursing shortage over there, which is pretty much all over, and they're also going to open up an office over in West Fargo. That's it.
Thanks, Kevin.
I don't know if you want that.
Okay, I just had the one meeting last week, and that was the Solid Waste Advisory Committee meeting. And Brian was there with Kirk, and they gave the update on the joint facility that's being proposed at the landfill site. I think they gave a good detailed report on that. And our SWAC committee is certainly very interested in that, and they think that's a really smart idea to consolidate those at that location. Then Kirk and Steve Moore from Moorhead gave an update on the MPCA grant. And there's some still discussion about the site, where it's going to go, and then we have to have some discussions about who's going to ultimately end up owning it. And then Shannon gave a report on the recycling and the take back jack for the year, and that was even better than last year. And then we just had our updates from the other staff, and that's about it.
Thank you. And I had the same meeting as Kevin, and he reported on that. That was it for me. Jenny, do you have anything?
Thank you. Last week I also had the Planning Commission. Frank covered it fairly well. There were over 20 people that voiced concerns based on the Hightail Horse Ranch, things that have been in the news, and just urge the Planning Commission to maybe reevaluate the terms that permit was given. And yesterday at Lakeland Mental Health, we're continuing to narrow down on our executive director search committee. We've got a pretty good start on that, and we'll start interviews in February. One big issue that we talked about yesterday, the key indicators for child psychiatrist appointments at our Moorhead location is averaging 50 to 55 days for the past few months. And previous Commissioner McCarthy and I are concerned with that, because there are, if you were to go to other satellite locations, the wait time would only be a couple of days. So there's a psychiatrist shortage, and so we're urging them to maybe look at adding some FTE or additional staff time. That concludes my report.
Thanks. Ladies, come on up. Request to fill vacated project manager position.
Good
Good
morning.
morning.
Yes, the request is to fill a project manager position with our statewide health improvement program, which Gina manages. We have a person that is leaving, and so we are just requesting to fill that. It's grant funded. There's no county dollars that go into that at all. So we need approval to fill the vacated full-time position.
Thank you. Questions? You move to approve? Motion to approve? Have a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. Discussion. Gonna make it that easy on these ladies this
Aye.
morning? Okay. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oh, same side, motion carries.
All
Thank
right.
you. Okay, qualifications.
Thank you.
Let's see if this one's as easy. Qualifications for detox director. Thanks, Gina.
Hope you have a lot of time this morning. As you know, we've been recruiting for quite some time to get an RN detox manager, as well as a couple other RN positions in our public health agency, and we also have an RN team lead opening. So some of these positions have been open 3+ months. As you are aware, it is very challenging to recruit RNs. It is for other entities as well. I have nurses continually recruiting with friends and other acquaintances. I've worked with some department heads at the 2 medical facilities across the river, trying to recruit some of their staff. We really worked pretty diligently on recruitment, and we really have not been able to recruit an RN. So in the past, I'm specifically talking about detox now, because it's a medical detox, there's always been the need to have an RN manager. It makes sense. We're dealing with withdrawal medications, health assessments. It truly is a medical model, communicating with physicians, our on-call physicians. But because of the inability to recruit an RN and the need to move that detox manager. She has taken a position in our public health agency, and that position needs to be filled. The nurses are really tapped out, trying to cover the full-time position. So we need to get her into that position. In the past, and I think obviously none of you were here at the time, and I don't think Commissioner Campbell, you were here, we had one time where we had a non-nursing manager in our detox, and it did not work out. That person was there for a short period of time, and then the Board of Commissions at the time and also the Public Health Advisory Board determined that it is just too difficult. You're managing all the medical aspects with a non-nurse, and that just wasn't very effective. But we're in a spot where we really need to probably look at that again, so that's my request, is to look at a non-nursing manager. Certainly we want someone with a chemical dependency background and maybe even mental health. We'd maybe need to determine some efficiencies for that position, because there's going to be lots of duties that are required of a nurse that this position, if it was a non-nurse, could not fill. For example, all the oversight of the medical, the withdrawal medications, the Nurse Practice Act, et cetera. But I think we need to kind of move forward with that plan again. The board at the time said they would not do that, but you're a new board and we're in a different time now. And so it would provide a kind of a double layer, because that director of detox that is a non-nurse would not be able to back up the RN. That RN still would have to be communicating with all the medical facilities, the physicians, would have to take the on-call for medical needs, which only a nurse could do. So we'd have a little bit of an issue with that, but I think that that's where we need to go at this time. There's not many options. We're still meeting the requirements of the statute. As long as we have a nurse that oversees all of the nursing acts and the LPNs, that nurse still has to be, a lead nurse would still have to be providing input to the performance evals of the nurses, because there's also the work, but there's the nursing practice that they need to evaluate. A non-nursing director could do the scheduling, and they could provide some oversight, but there's a lot of medical pieces that would be missing with that position. But I really feel like we're at a spot where we need to try it again and see if this would be a viable option. We're at a point where we don't have a nurse that can take the position. I have 2 retired nurses that are working variable hour that have 30 years of CD mental health experience. Unfortunately, they're both retired. They're willing to fill in as they can. I've done my best recruitment to get them to split that RN position, and they just don't want to commit to that.
Wayne?
Thank you. Kathy, what kind of salary would you offer to somebody taking this position, approximately?
I'm assuming it would be in line 18, where the RN manager is at. Is that correct, Darren? I think it's 18. Well, no, that's the grade. I'm sorry, that's the grade. I don't have the salary grade with me. I think that starts at 21 something an hour. Yeah.
What is that per year?
How much? 21?
2270.
About 47,000
Yeah.
a year.
Go up to,
Okay, that's,
up to 32 of one is
Jenny?
So currently, we require a BSN for this director? Okay. Or 3 years of experience?
Yep, 3 years of
And a
management
supervisor,
experience.
too.
Mhm.
Right.
Right, and the Department of Human Services, who I've worked with, the statute requirement is that they have a 1 year of experience with substance abuse individuals. And that's a statutory requirement, but the Department of Human Services manager said, as long as I have the current manager within our agency, and as long as they can do the training, they allowed me to leave that out of the ad.
Well, frankly, since I came on the board, which is less than a year, I think there has constantly been a detox position advertised because we are unable to fill that for whatever reason. So I appreciate your effort to try and make things work, and if we feel that we've maybe exhausted all other options to get this filled. I do support maybe changing the verbiage and requirements, because I feel that the people that will screen these applicants are qualified enough to determine whether they'd be capable in the position or not. So I will support a motion to, what's the verbiage? What do we need? Do you have?
It's to advertise for a program manager with either a baccalaureate degree or 3 years of
Well, we have
experience
to
in
change the
administration.
qualifications.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'll support a motion to change the qualifications. I just don't see
As
that.
well.
written.
Kevin?
Mr. Chairman, I want to go back. Kathy, I think when the county board originally did that, it was even under a different public health director, wasn't it? It was
Yes.
before you were.
Correct.
And if I recall correctly, as being here at that time, that there were other issues going on within that department.
Yeah.
And I think there's been a change, obviously, at the top and in leadership there. And we did talk a little bit about this at last week's PIC committee meeting. And I think, you know, the concern of the PIC committee was that there was still always a nurse on duty. And that's the main thing, is that we do have a nurse on duty. You know, I think with that in mind, I'm also going to support it, but I have a question. Do we, when we're changing the qualifications, does that also then require us to look at the PDQ again?
We still have to do that.
You still have to,
And
okay.
look at the PDQ to see if that's going to change much.
Okay,
I don't anticipate a huge change in that,
okay,
so, but we would have to revise that.
okay.
Oh.
Yeah, so you know, and I think that was the message from the PIC committee, was that I think we also agree with this proposed change.
Yeah. Kathy?
But keep in mind, there is not an RN right now. We still have to recruit for a full-time
Right.
RN. There's only the variable hour RNs. So we have to get a qualified RN that can manage all those medical pieces.
And this goes back to what Jenny just mentioned a few minutes ago. This has been, the nurse issue at the detox has been an issue for years.
25 years.
In terms of being able to keep nursing on staff. And I still believe that it's directly related to what we have next door to us.
Yes.
And the competitive nature of it that a lot of other counties simply do not have.
Correct.
Becker County doesn't have it, Otter Tail County doesn't
Right.
have it, but we have it. But yet when we go through, our comparative studies, we compare it to our similar counties to us, but we don't even look at what's right next door from a marketing standpoint and ability to hire.
Correct.
And nurse is one of those that is just, it really hurts us.
Yeah.
I really believe that we need to totally look at the whole nursing payroll package and incorporate something that's going to allow us to hire nurses and have them stay.
Right.
So,
Jenny?
That is true, Commissioner Campbell. With us being a border city, we do have those issues. However, I was with meetings with commissioners from Otter Tail County yesterday, and they're experiencing the same thing. And from what I hear, it's a statewide issue with the detox program. So while we are unique with a large city next door, I believe it's a statewide issue as well.
Yeah, we're competing with a large medical system that makes it tough, so. Kathy?
And I will say, in speaking to Commissioner Campbell's points, we've had 3 RNs now that we have talked with. One of them would love to come and work in our detox, but currently she's making $33 an hour as a staff nurse and has only been at the facility for 2 years. So speaking to that, she just completely cannot accept a position that we can't even meet. And we have 2 other nurses that some of my adult health nurses have recruited, and they said the same thing, is they cannot come for the funding that, or the money that we're offering. So we do have some issues with salaries.
Mr. Chair, I move to grant Kathy is asking for.
I think I
change
already
it.
did.
Did you make, was that a motion you made?
Right.
You said you-
I'm sorry, I made a motion to support.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign, motion carries.
All right, thank you.
Good luck, Kathy.
Good luck indeed.
Okay, a resolution affirming Clay County's endorsement of the revised county program aid formula developed by the Association of Minnesota Counties. Brian?
Sounds pretty important. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning, Commissioners. This is something that Commissioner Campbell talked about when we were down at the District 4 AMC, directed about getting this on the board, and then we did receive an email this week with this formatted, I should say, resolution for your consideration, and I think Vicki went ahead and made the changes that were needed on it. And what I handed out to you was just documentation to show that this county program aid change is supported by the AMC Legislative Council. And then if you will look on the second page, I've identified Clay counties. There would, if this formula was approved by the legislature, there would be a 16% increase in Clay County's program aid. Now, that would require an additional $40 million by the state legislature. So to assume that we're going to get it by passing this resolution is, you know, please don't do that. But this is so that each county has endorsed it, and then AMC can take this to the legislature showing that the counties have endorsed it.
Yeah, there's no reason we wouldn't want to do that.
I wouldn't think so.
That I can think of, so. Kevin?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I think this is a really good opportunity for counties, and what I was really impressed with was that in this particular case, you see a lot of the rural counties really being able to gain a significant amount from this in comparison to even some of the metro counties, but the metro counties were in full support of going along with this. So this is a case where there was a lot of work put in by an awful lot of people to try to come up with a fair way to do this. I do want to caution that there still is criteria to this, and depending on your criteria, you may get more, you might get less in the future. But as it stands right now, everybody stands to gain as the current system goes forward. But that 16% that we would schedule to get based on current circumstances could be adjusted based on all of the different criteria in the future. But it should certainly be, I think there's also a stopgap at the bottom, and there's also a stopgap at the top. So I think this is a good deal, and I
think so, too.
fully support it.
Do we have a motion?
I wouldn't so move.
I'll second the motion.
Motion and a second. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Both same sign, motion carries. Thanks. Don't go anywhere, Brian, you're up next.
Okay, I'll grab another sheet.
Oh, we got each. Okay. Proposed restructure of management committee. Brian Burke.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair, again. This is something I guess I've looked at for a few years now, and I explained a little bit in the memo that you have contained there that the county board set up the management committee many, many years ago when you were under a different structure. And it has worked, but I guess I feel it lacks consistency at times when it moves around with the chair and the vice chair and who's responsible for the agenda and who's responsible for putting together the minutes if we're going to have them and different things. And I think since the county board went with the county administrator 10, 15 years ago, that is the responsibility of the county administrator to be a liaison from the county board to the department head. Take your policies that you wish and enforce those policies and communicate other directives through that and listen to input from those department heads. So I guess I feel that is a function you should encourage, and not necessarily if I'm in this position or whatever, you should encourage that committee to continue or demand that committee to continue. But I think it should be under the direction of a county administrator. And that's what I'm asking for. But the policy states that it was established by this board, and I feel that this board should change it if you're going to change it. So.
Discussion, Kevin?
Yeah, I think that, like I said, that process was in place when we were under not a administrator, but a coordinator. I by no means am interested in not having a management committee.
Yeah.
I think what's important is that the county administrator works at the direction of the board and makes sure that all policies are followed. However, I do believe that the management committee serves a purpose in getting together, and then the county administrator, if that person's going to be in charge, should also then bring back concerns or maybe not even concerns, but improvements that can be made in policy. But the minute this county went to an administrator form of government, it established the process of who's in charge. And
Well, the board's in charge.
well,
We do, but we're the conduit.
But the administrator, when it comes to county staff and all of that type of stuff, has an awful lot of say in what goes on.
No responsibility.
Yes, you have a lot of responsibility.
I think it's a good proposed change. Any other comments?
I'll agree.
I'll make a motion change.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries.
Thank you,
Brian.
Mr. Chair.
Brian, let's see, you're last on the committee reports. Well, we can, actually, why don't, these folks are here for the tax forfeited property? Is that what you're here for? Yes, yeah, okay. Do you want to come on up and have a seat, and Nancy, you can come up on, do.
There's a ramp on the other side if you would. I'd like to use a ramp.
I can step up.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, we have a request to repurchase tax forfeited property.
Good morning. Good morning.
Morning.
Thank you.
Do you want to fill us in a little bit, Nancy, on what?
Mr. Pelvet is here to ask to repurchase his property that went tax forfeit. I did write up a little memo as to kind of what the backstory is on the whole thing and how the tax statements were going to this Alan Shepard attorney guy, and I did contact him more than one time, and Mr. Pelvet, when he did find out that this had happened, he came up to the courthouse right away and was asking if he could get his land back.
Mr. Chair, and this is all right with you, you've gone through the process. Thank you.
I'll move to approve the motion to allow the Pelvets to repurchase the tax forfeit property.
Second.
Mr. Chair, if I could, I certainly have no opposition to the action, but there are some statutory requirements that need to be met to make it happen, and one of them is a resolution which has not yet been drafted. There are some things I didn't know to put in it, but statute requires establishing a few things. One, the date of the forfeiture and that less than a year has passed. I know that's true, but we need to make that finding. That some injustice would be corrected by allowing the repurchase. We also need to establish the amount owed in taxes, any penalties, interest, or costs that have been accruing on it. And finally, what repayment terms the board would require. It can be done in installments. I think the amount might be modest, and may be something they wish to take care of nearly immediately. But those things do need to be established, and it needs to be passed by resolution.
So, will you have that resolution for us then next week, or?
I can certainly do that.
Okay.
Well, are you hoping to satisfy the $593.55 today?
Yes.
Okay, it is paid off. I think that it's a benefit to our citizens to have this property back on the tax rolls, so I do think that it's, by allowing them to do that, we'll correct a wrong. And in the future, have we changed how the notifications go out? I would hate for them to miss out on something.
We haven't talked about it yet.
Okay, so between you guys can arrange how those statements are sent out, so in the past we can, or in the future, we can avoid this. I think that satisfies all the requirements for the resolution.
I believe it does as well. I think all 4 criteria have been met that our county attorney's office has requested of us. And I don't know that we have to wait for the official. I think we can adopt this with the idea in mind that the resolution will be written to coincide with our findings that all criteria have been met.
Is that agreeable, Steve? We can approve this?
That's fine with me. I could, if I did, as we sat here, draw out at least a draft of a resolution, perhaps I could read it into the record. We could simply follow up.
Sure. Yeah,
That's great.
Okay. But I guess I do need a couple of things. One is the total amount due, and
$593.55.
that includes any interest, penalties.
Correct.
Okay. Also, am I correct that the parcel ID is 28-016-2201?
That's correct.
And is there any opposition to simply identifying it by parcel ID instead of full description?
No.
Okay. Then I propose this. Whereas Charles Pelvitt has accrued delinquent taxes, penalties, interest, and costs of $593.55. Whereas the resulting forfeiture was the result of excusable neglect on his part. Whereas allowing repurchase will correct an injustice. Whereas Minnesota Statute 282.241 allows for repurchase by resolution of the Board of County Commissioners. Whereas the requirements of that statute have been met. Therefore, be it resolved, Charles Edward Pelvitt may repurchase parcel 28-016-2201 for $593.55. Payment terms 30 days.
Perfect, thank you, Steve. So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. There you go, thank you.
Thanks for coming, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Okay, Brian, your committee report.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll make it relatively quick here. Met with Dave and Kirk in regards to the project that Commissioner Campbell talked about at the solid waste meeting. We talked mostly about costs and how it was going to be broken down and how it was going to be paid. And we'll do a little more research in there. I know the committee, at the direction of the chair, would like us to talk a little more about that, so we'll certainly do that. Met with Darren and Mike in regards to union negotiations. We'll be talking more about that in closed session. Solid Waste Advisory attended that. We presented the building. I had a diversion administrative advisory meeting. We talked about land purchases and what was going on, and I think we've, at least the committee understood the explanation on the Anderson property that will be discussed this afternoon that affects the Moorhead, Clay County side. We talked about a lot of other land purchases as well. Another issue that we talked about was the next year's budget for the diversion, and that will be coming to the individual entities that make up the diversion authority. And I think we have a tentative date for December 22nd, was it, Vicki? For the diversion budget that will be coming forward. So that'll come around to each of the entities. It'll be in December anyway. Had a central management administration meeting last Thursday as well. And then Commissioner Whalen and I met with construction engineering, which was, again, educational in regards to a construction manager and what type and the need for it and things along that line to try and gain more education on where we're going to go. And we'll certainly be bringing a recommendation to the county board in regards to that in future weeks, I'll say. I also met, the county and city have a land management committee, and they met on the same day, and I visited with them about the building projects and the coordination and cooperation, because as the jail project goes forward, we'll be needing to close streets, we'll be needing to change zoning of certain parcels if we're going to be looking at parking lots, and we just need to keep an open line of communication with the city in regards to those issues, and we've promised that. Met with Tim and Joe, Tim Magnuson and Joe Olson, in regards to the homes that we've been purchasing. And by the way, by the end of this year, we'll have 12 homes purchased. So we have to winterize and make sure of snow removal and different things along those lines. So we can assure you that we're coordinating that. I had a detox employee that I met with last Friday for about an hour, some issues. Met with Darren and Kathy yesterday morning in regards to detox. We will get our arms around this situation and move it on down the road, because I think you're aware that Fergus Falls has been talking about, is planning on closing their detox facility. This will be the only medical detox between here and Wilmer, and we need to work to keep this open, in my mind. Otherwise, our expenses would go up a great deal with it. Tim and I met with a homeowner yesterday in regards to a purchase agreement, so that keeps moving forward. And I've been spending some time, and I sent you some information in regards to Ellers and bonding and a schedule, and I'll work with the Finance Committee on tying down some things on that, of timing when our expenditures are needed and things. But I just wanted to let you folks know that we are working on that aspect of it too, and so we'll certainly coordinate that. I didn't want that to be just left out there for a while. So when we get some charts and different things with Ellers, and the Finance Committee understands this, that we'll ask Ellers to come back to the board again to explain some of the schedules that we'll be looking at. So that'll be forthcoming as well. We're a ways out yet, but it's boy, the time goes by so fast that we need to be prepared. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Hey, Brian, I saw enough communication between you and Shelley regarding that issue, and I think it would be appropriate to schedule a Finance Committee meeting as soon as possible to review what you've done to this point.
Thank you.
Is that it, Brian?
Yep, that's it, sir.
Thank you. Okay, we've got
Got one question.
Frank, sorry.
On our upcoming meetings, Vicki, in December, do we have 5 meetings?
Yeah, you don't meet on the 8th because of AMC.
Oh, we meet on the
You
10th.
meet on the 10th, and then the 15th, 22nd, and you normally meet the last week of the month because of the year.
Very good, okay. Thank you.
Okay, closed session on negotiating strategies.
Move to close.
Need to leave by 9:30. Motion and a second to close. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.